Cool. So I'm not going to introduce myself again. Hopefully you at least have my name. What? Oh. I thought someone said something. So today we're going to deal with macroeconomics. We've got 3 hours today. I promise you I'll give you a chance to speak later. I promise you. Okay. Okay, cool. So we dealt with microeconomics yesterday, and essentially what today is about is trying to take it to the next level, I suppose, and the next level in the sense that macroeconomics is essentially an aggregation of microeconomics. Okay, so short refresher. Macroeconomics, and not just basic economics, is sometimes the idea that the parts are worth more than the whole, right? So it's better if I know exactly how much you guys have and I can sell to each of you individually pieces of a pig for those who eat and indulge in such, as opposed to, and I mean bacon, because bacon's better than pork. I mean, in case you don't know, it's just, bacon's amazing. It's better to sell bacon than to sell a whole pig sometimes. So you'll definitely get more money from selling bacon bits than you will from selling a whole pig. So it's that kind of thing that happens sometimes in economics, where it's not about the whole doesn't necessarily represent a better story than the sum of it, the parts that make up the whole. Okay, so that's kind of the difference between the micro and macro stuff. So sometimes you look at the economy and you feel like something's falling apart, but if you look at individual industries, you find that actually there's a lot of green shoots that point to a better future for the economy. Make sense? Yeah.
Thinking about synergy, because then synergy also the sum is more than the part of the whole, like 1 plus 1 or something is equal to 3.
That's almost the exact opposite. So economics, the parts usually add up to more than what the whole is by itself. In a funny way, it's usually the sum of the parts is greater than the parts by themselves. Is kind of what you normally get. So her abilities plus his abilities doesn't equal doubling. It could equal a quadrupling or whatever it is. Whereas what I'm saying is that in economics, when you break it down, you'll find that there are better things happening in the smaller bits than it will look like it happening in the greater. Does that make sense? Almost the exact opposites. Cool. So yesterday we defined the economics as the social science that examines how people choose to use limited resources, limited or scarce resources, in attempting to satisfy unlimited wants. We dealt with scarcity, we dealt with choice, we dealt with opportunity cost. I think everybody was, at the end of it, fairly comfortable with that ideas, even though you weren't comfortable with scarcity being the underpinning story of economics. We'll hopefully deal with that a bit more later. Then we said that microeconomics is the study of individuals, households, and firms' behavior in decision making and allocation of resources. Okay, so once we had the story of scarce resources being allocated for unlimited ones, we said we looked at how individuals, households, and firms go about making their decisions. Then we did define macroeconomics, but because today is going to be about macroeconomics, we can do that again. Macroeconomics is the branch of economics that studies the behavior and performance of an economy as a whole. Okay, so once we understand the individual level stuff, how does the economy look like at the top of it? Okay, so it focuses on the aggregate changes in the economy, such as unemployment, growth rates, gross domestic product, and inflation. Okay. So that's kind of what we're going to deal with today, that overarching stuff. So we're going to do a lot of defining stuff. What is this? What is that? Trying to see what the patterns have been like historically. And we'll close off with a discussion on nationalization versus privatization. Okay? And then we can have some ideological stuff come in there. we've got 3 hours. I think I'll be done with this within 2, so we'll have a whole hour to discuss all kinds of things. This is not to say don't chip in again. It's always better if it's interactive. So, and if we end up talking in between the slides until the 3 hours is done, that's okay as well. Okay. Cool. So that's macroeconomics. At the top of the macroeconomic story is usually a bunch of institutions that are responsible for the 2 main branches or components of macroeconomics. And what you have there is usually the Reserve Bank or the central bank or whatever you call it, it's called by in that particular country. America's Federal Reserve, we just say Reserve Bank. The Europeans call it the European Central Bank, so the ECB, and so on and so on. But it's usually either a central bank or a reserve bank, okay? And they're usually responsible for the monetary policy. And on the other side of it, you've got treasuries, which are responsible for the fiscal policy, okay? So we'll deal with what that is. So there's South African Reserve Bank, which is the SARB, commonly known as the SARB, is the South African Reserve Bank, are responsible for monetary policy, and what they tend to do in that space is influence the quantity of money required, of the quantity of money in the economy, which they tend to do by using the required reserves for banks. So they'll say if a bank has assets of this much, 2 or 3% of that money must be held in cash by the Reserve Bank. Okay, and when they increase that amount, what you'll find is that the amount of loans that the banks are able to then dish out decreases. Okay, so when the generally known term printing money is spoken about, it's not actually printing money. It's just the ability for banks to give out more loans. There's a chair for you right here, right here, right here. No, yes, no. Oh, he's coming. I was just teasing. So it's the ability to have more loans given out, right? So if the Reserve Bank says you now have to give 10% of your loan book as cash to the Reserve Bank, what you'll find is that they'll call in their loans to make sure that they've got more cash and give that back. And so the process of creating money, it's called money creation, is then kind of shrunk or expanded in that way. Okay, the Reserve Bank doesn't actually print money. Does that make sense? Okay, it's actually historically the term was created to try and deceive people. Funny enough, it's because when someone says, take Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwean government is printing money, the picture that you get in your mind is that the Zimbabwean government is going to the Zimbabwean Reserve Bank and literally printing money and flooding it into the market, right? And gives you a picture of an irresponsible government, as opposed to actually there's no such thing. They've just relaxed or made more stringent the requirements of the banks. Does that make sense? Okay. And when someone says like the country's running out of money, essentially there's just what's happening is that because money is not just the cash, right? So there's credit cards, there's whatever. Now there's that app. What's it called? Zip, whatever. There's a whole bunch of apps that you can pay with. I'll take your question now. That are themselves a form of currency, right? So what we mean when we say that you're running out of money is that people just don't have enough balances in those things to be able to go after the cash, right? So, yeah.
So are you saying that the Reserve Bank doesn't print money? Like
No.
In a situation where people hold on to the money, whatever speculative or precautionary.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying they don't print money. I'm saying the amount of money in the economy that is actually cash, which is notes and coins, is probably usually between like 3 and 10% of the money in the economy. And the rest of it is literally, I have a loan with ABSA for my mortgage, and so that in a sense has given me some kind of liquidity and currency, right? So I can go and buy a house, even though I did not at any point in my life have 1.5 or 2 million in cash to go and buy that house. I just went to apps and said I want a loan, and they've got it somewhere on a computer that says I owe them X amount of money, but I've never had that cash in my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but in what sense? Say like expansionary monetary policy,
Yeah.
and they want to increase money supply. Maybe people aren't spending as much as they should.
Yeah.
Is that the only situation where they would print more money?
No, that's what I'm saying. They don't print more money. They'll just reduce the interest rates, and they'll reduce the reserve rate requirements, and then banks will give out more loans, and people will have more money. But all it is it's reflected in your account that now you took a loan of 100,000, and you have you ever walked around with 100,000 in your hand? How many people do you know that have been walking around with 100,000 rand or any currency in their wallet? Have you seen anyone carrying 100,000? Yeah. In Zimbabwe, funny enough, it happens now, right? So people now walk around with cash because they're not sure about the reliability of the government. But in normal economies, people at most will have like 5,000 rands in their wallet, but they're buying things worth 10, 20, 40,000. The cash component of money is a very small part of it. Yeah.
So in the case of Zimbabwe, you said they didn't actually print money. It was just reducing the required reserves of banks and reducing interest rates. That's what.
Yeah, that's what they try to do. They try to print some money, but and that's why the notes change, right? So we moved from 100 Zim dollars to like a billion Zim dollar notes.
Yeah.
So they did do some money printing. It's just that's not really the full story. Yeah. Good morning. Thank you. Did I not say good morning? I apologize.
In my understanding, okay, I'm not making studies.
Okay.
When you're speaking of is it money, getting big money, right? You say
Print money.
print money.
Yeah.
When speaking of printing money, what I understand, what I know is that in the actual sense, money was supposed to be equivalent to the amount of gold that is in the
Once upon a time, we're the gold standard. Yeah.
So, because something went wrong, if you don't keep it in the system, everyone is printing money somehow. Can you explain the part for me, please? Sorry.
Okay, so that's now the history of money. Okay, so the history of money starts with barter, right? So I've got a cow, okay, but now I want shoes, I want clothes, and I want cheese. No, if I wanted cheese, I'd just milk my cow. And I want a car, okay. You make cheese, Litanelo makes clothes, and what's your name? Sorry, Sophia makes chairs. Whatever. What did I say? What was the third thing I wanted? Cars. Okay, she makes cars. What I do is that I cut my chicken into thirds, okay, and I come to you and I say, for this amount of cow, can I have 3 pairs of shoes? Okay, and you, because you're a shoemaker, give me 3 pairs of shoes in exchange for my meat. Okay, I go to Litanelo and I say, for this amount of cow, can I have 2 shirts and a pair of shorts? Okay, and because she makes clothes, she gives me that and I give her the meat in return. Then I go to Safia, okay, and there's like various ways of saying this name, and I'm never sure which way it is. Safia, anyway. Safia. I go to her and I say, here's my cow, can I have probably a quarter of a car, right? And I give her the cow and she gives me a quarter of a car. Okay, that's historically where we come from as a race. We'd just barter. Okay, I would give you the things that I make, you give me the things that you make. The struggle with that is it's impractical to buy a quarter of a car. It means nothing to me. Okay. Also, in order for me to barter with you and have meat and you have shoes, you must want meat and we must want shoes. Like, it must be a phenomenal moment in which you need the exact thing that I have and I need the exact thing that you have. Okay. So that becomes tricky. And so someone says, man, why don't we find something that we can hold as that represents the value of something. Okay, so it starts off with gold coins and silver coins. So I can give you. You can say to me. I can say to you, my cow is worth 5 or 10 gold coins. Okay, and you can say to me, whatever, your shoe, a pair of shoes is worth 2 gold coins. And I go and I sell my cow to someone who needs a cow. They give me 10 gold coins, and I take my 10 gold coins and I come to you and I say, here's 2 gold coins. I need a pair of shoes. I go to Thulani and I say, here's a gold coin. Can I have the clothes that I want? And I go to Safia and I say, here are 7 gold coins. Can I have a whole car? Okay. So now we've got a system that says we've got this thing, these coins that now become currency. Okay, and they are directly linked to. The value of gold is in your hands, right? Because you walk around with the coins. Okay. And then someone was like, damn it, these bloody coins are heavy. Like, I hate the fact that I have to walk around with gold coins my whole life, the whole time. And also it's a little dangerous, right? Like, if I'm walking around with gold, like, we've got some problems. Okay. So they say, I'll tell you what, we'll have these notes that say, me as a bank, I'm holding 500 gold coins that belong to Thulani. Okay. And Thulani can take this note and say to you, you can go and take this note, go to that bank, and they will give you the 2 gold coins you need for your shoes. Okay, so now I don't have to hold the coins anymore. And essentially an IOU type story. So eventually we go that route. And I give you that, you give me the shoes, you are then able to go to the bank and take the 2 gold coins, come back home and either store them or put them in another bank somewhere. Cool. And there used to be so credit used to be frowned upon. It used to be called usury, right? So most banks were like, I will never give you debt because almost every religious text in the world says usury is evil. Okay, and I don't know how we've now cutely forgotten that. Okay, so you can't charge interest on a loan that you give someone. Okay, so now at some point we all forget and pretend like the Bible and the Quran and the Torah they don't actually say that. Like, let's just park it. Okay, and now we go one step further and we say, not only the guy who's holding the bank doesn't just hold my gold coins and you can now go exchange them. What he does is he holds my gold coins, but because he knows I'm never going to come for all of my gold coins at the same time, he goes to Patu. When Patu needs cash quickly, liquidity, he says, well, Patu, I can give you, so they're holding 500 of my gold coins. They're quite sure I won't come asking for more than 250 of them at a time. They say, Patu, we've got 250 gold coins that we can lend to you, lend to you. Okay, and now what they've done is that they've created money, right? So there's 500 gold coins that belong to me, but there's also 250 gold coins that belong to him, and now there's 750 gold coins in the economy when actually there's 500. Do you see what I'm saying? And so this is the money creation process. Okay, so Pato puts his 250 into a bank somewhere. That bank knows that he's not going to come for the 250, he'll come for 125. Okay, they take 125 and they lend it to, wow, that's going to be tough. Shugufta.
Yes.
Shugufta. Sure, that's tough. I feel like a white person right now. So they take 125 and they lend it to Shugufta. Okay, now we've got 500 plus 250 plus 125. We've got 875 gold coins magically from this original 500. Okay, so that's how we're now creating money in the system. Okay, then someone's like, and this is in, so all of this is happening all the way to like 1940, whatever, 45, let's say, after the war. Okay, World War II, the world economy is falling apart. Marshall Plan is to come into place, blah, blah, blah. And then they go to Bretton Woods. Okay, and they create the three stools of the financial system, which still underpin the system today: IMF, World Bank, and the third institution.
The reserve? Is it the reserve?
No, it's not. It's the IMF, IFC, International Finance Corporation. Okay, so it's the International Monetary Fund, International Finance Corporation, and the World Bank. Okay, which are essentially all part of the World Bank group. And they say these institutions are going to help us restore the world economy, which they do. They give Europe tons of money, which again they just Marshall Plan. Even Germany, the losers, get money to fix their economy. Okay, so when you talk about the African situation and why they're not getting money, it becomes interesting. But everybody gets money, the world comes back, and everybody agrees. Okay, what we're going to do is take the gold coins, and we're going to say every gold bar is worth X amount of dollars. Okay, and the world economy can only have as many dollars as there is gold in the storehouses. Okay. And it works like that until like the 70s. In 1971, Nixon is like, you know what, this is bullshit. It's not going to work. Screw you. We think the the US dollar is going to be good without the necessarily being pegged to the gold bars. And he unhinges it. Okay, so now there is an unlimited ability to put money into the economy. That's essentially what it does, right? Because before, you could only put as much money in the economy as you had gold. Okay. Now, it's now completely fiat money. Okay. It's completely based on, I trust that the Reserve Bank, the US Federal Reserve is not going to fall apart. You trust that I'm good for my money and you let us go crazy. So we get off the gold standard as the world economy. Okay. And we get into free floating currency exchanges, and we'll deal with that in a little bit, and that kind of thing. So now, our entire monetary system, global monetary system, is based on our faith in the Reserve Bank's ability to not fall apart. They still hold gold reserves, most of them, but they are nowhere near representative of the amount of money in the economy or in any way related, in any way. So that's how we've moved from, essentially, as a species, from barter to what's today essentially fiat money. And fiat is basically just faith money, right? I believe that it's going to stick and not fall apart. Yeah, in a nutshell. There's a lot more detail that underpins that. No, corruption has always been part of our human race. It did not start with that. Yeah.
Can I just ask something?
Sure.
I just want to know, like, what is the significance of a country's ability, or how can I put this? You see the instance with ESCOM, right?
Yeah.
So if we look at the Reserve Bank,
Yeah.
what value will you put on our government, or on government, that they actually owns the Reserve Bank instead of other stakeholders who are?
Are you asking that because you know we don't own the Reserve Bank?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? So most privately owned institutions, the purpose of their existence is to create profit for the owners. Okay. Reserve banks around the world don't really create profit for the owners. They have dividends for sure, but it's not a remarkable amount of money. Okay. So one asks the question, even why even own a reserve bank, or why even have be a shareholder in a reserve bank? It gives you the power to determine how much credit gets out of it into the economy, right? So they don't actually, on paper, get rights over policy making, but they do. Okay, so if I'm a shareholder, I'm going to push you in one direction or another. So essentially, most of the world, if the information I have is correct, the credit lines in most of the world are controlled by the Rothschilds family in some way or another, right? So the Rothschilds. Okay, so because I think with an exception of 2 reserve banks in the world, they own majority stakes in all of the reserve banks in the world, and those 2 are Cuba and North Korea. So it's about power, right? It's the ability to switch on and switch off credit taps. So Zimbabwe falls apart essentially. Yeah, sure, there was like land grabs, like, and that wasn't cool. But like, the reason Zimbabwe actually tanks is because they just switch off the credit taps. So now Zimbabwe is unable to pay back because most countries, what they do is they just restructure their debt, right? No one ever pays off the entire debt. They just give out new bonds to pay for old bonds, and so the cycle goes. Okay, so America has a debt of like $14 trillion or something. Okay, and that's just government debt. That's not the total debt in the country. Okay, but it's 1-to-1 with their GDP, and they're never really going to pay it off. So Americans are like, deficit and surpluses. Deficit and surpluses don't mean that they will have wiped out their debt. It just means that they'll be able to balance their budget for that year. So they won't need the new debt to pay off their current expenditure. So what it does is it gives you the ability to say, we're going to give credit to you, we're not going to give credit to you, and we're going to give credit to you. And you get to control who gets to succeed and who doesn't. So if a government takes over that power, they could essentially be able to determine for themselves because who's to stop the government from just printing money from the Reserve Bank to pay their debts? But that's another ideological discussion. We're not going to move from this slide, are we? Yeah.
Sorry. I don't
ask.
Is an idea rates going up, everyone is going crazy.
Yeah.
It's way too many.
Yeah, so that was supposed to be my next point like 10 minutes ago. The repo rate is the full name is the repurchase rate. Okay. And the repo rate is the interest rate at which the Reserve Banks lends money to banks. Okay, so in South Africa, what it does is it also then determines what the prime lending rate is going to be. And the prime lending rate is the rate at which the banks lend money to their best clients, their best behaved clients. Okay, and the repo rate, the relationship between the repo rate and the prime rate is the prime rate equals repo rate plus 3.5%. Okay, so what does that mean? Say my bond is taken at prime. Okay, what happens is when the repo rate goes up by 1% from 5% to 6%, the interest that I pay on my bond will move from 8.5% to 9.5%. So every time the repo rate inches up, my cost of debt inches up. And so I have less money in my pocket at the end of every month. And that's why people will cry. Yeah.
So it's the interest rate to which Reserve Bank lends out to regular banks.
To banks, yeah. Cool. The primary function of the Reserve Bank in South Africa is to protect the currency, right? And the value of the currency, and that kind of takes on numerous forms, right? It's not, so we don't have a pegged exchange rate. So it's not, they don't go and buy and sell rands to try and make sure that we are within a particular band. Because if that was the case, we wouldn't be at 15 right now to the dollar, right? We would have stayed at some band somewhere. But what they do, protecting the currency in South Africa, in the South African context, means ensuring that inflation doesn't erode the value of the money. Okay, so we have an inflation targeting regime in South Africa, which the Reserve Bank kind of determines their whole policy structure around. So whether they increase the repo rate or not will generally be informed by their expectations of what inflation is going to do in the future. Does that make sense? And I'll explain inflation in a moment. So, and that inflation targeting band or range in South Africa is 3 to 6%. So they want inflation to always be above 3%, but to always be below 6%. Okay, and inflation is basically the rate at which prices are increasing. Okay, so the repo rate and SABA, I never know how to say that, SABA or SABA or whatever, and prime lending rate. Okay, so repo rate is what I was saying, it's the rate at which banks, the Reserve Bank lends money to banks. The South African benchmark overnight rate is the rate at which banks lend money to each other. So Standard Bank sometimes lends ABSA money overnight, literally. And SABA is the interest rate that they'll charge them for lending them money overnight. So ABSA will say, dude, I need R1 billion tonight, okay, today. And Standard Bank will transfer R1 billion to ABSA, and the next day, ABSA transfers that R1 billion back, plus interest. That's remarkable, right? It's a bit crazy. So SABA is the rate at which they exchange rate, they lend money to each other. But the globally used interbank exchange rate is LIBOR, which is the London Interbank Offer Rate. Okay, so that's normally what gets quoted and what people peg their rates over or on. So the rate at which the English banks lend money to each other. Okay, and then you get prime rate, which is the rate at which banks lend money to their best clients. Okay, do you see how they build on each other? So repo is the lowest rate, SABA will be the next in between there, and then prime will be the most expensive. Cool. Was there a question? Yeah, it's a bit ugly. Okay.
Next slide.
Can I what? Oh, sorry. I forgot to send this to Samaya. So I'll send them to her today. Everybody good? No. I'll send the slides. Yeah. Yeah, sure. She'll give them to you. Otherwise, we're going to be waiting for you to write the whole day. Try write the things I'm saying that are not on the slides, I suppose. Okay, so the Rand-dollar exchange rate. What stands out for you there? So it's the Rand-dollar exchange rate since 1960 all the way to 2014. So we don't have last year's exchange, and this is the average over the year. Okay, so at the end of the year, depending on what it did during the year, this is the average for the year. What stands out for you about that? The what?
It used to be equivalent.
It used to be stronger, actually.
2000 was the strongest.
The what?
Between 2000 and
That's our weakest.
I'm confused.
Yeah. So let me explain. So this is the number of rands you have to pay to get a dollar. Okay. No, yeah. It wasn't clear. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to ask something. What is the history between the rand and the dollar? How it initially started? Don't you think that already the dollar had an advantage?
Why?
That's what I think, because that's how
So over
the
here-
superpowers are.
So over here, you pay 71 cents to get a dollar. So why does the dollar have an advantage then?
The way this currency was adopted, because most of these countries have higher currencies, sort of superpower, you understand? So
There's
I
only
think
one.
the
There's only
system
one
was created-
superpower. There's only one superpower, right? It's America.
Yeah,
So you're saying America had an advantage over the UK?
Yes, the system that was adopted, it was to suit them. That's what I think.
How? I mean, that's not enough to say that. How?
I'm not an economist.
No, but I mean, you can't think thoughts and not have thought about why. So how did you come to that conclusion? I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just, how did you get to that conclusion? How does the system suit America?
I'll think about it now.
No, give me something.
No, but one of my reasons was that they're like superpowers. Most of them.
What does it mean to be a superpower?
They have
to
the
your mind?
resources. They have the
What
money,
resources?
uh,
So we have, for example, more than 70% of the world's platinum reserves. Okay, we do own it.
No, it's not
Don't-
ours.
It is ours. It's on our land. It belongs to government.
Yeah, but the way in which it's treated.
No. But it's here though. It's here though. So, what resources are you referring to? I'm just giving an example of a resource that belongs to us. So how do the resources belong to America?
That's because of their ability to infiltrate into other countries. You understand? But my main argument in this whole thing is that I believe that most of the systems were created to suit them. I don't know how. Just have to read on this.
Okay, let me tell you what I'm trying to do. Okay, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or make you feel funny. I'm saying if you're gonna have thoughts about something, you need to be able to back them up and say why you have those thoughts. It's not enough to say I believe this, and then when you're pushed, I've just asked you one question, post your statement, and you can't defend that. It's not good enough. You guys are the cream of our economy. So you can't sit and say it just feels that way or it just looks like that. It's not enough. So yes, the system is created to suit America, and that's why everything is pegged against the dollar, everything is priced in dollars, and they get to be the ones who print money in their currency too. So Brent crude oil is in dollars, platinum is in dollars, everything gets quoted in dollars. And if you are the person who gets to print that currency, you have power. Absolutely. But does it mean that South Africa now can't determine how the platinum gets mined in the country? No, it doesn't. We somehow still let someone else mine our platinum and do with it what they want. So there is a level to which America has power, but you can't just then blame America for all the crap that your country goes through. You had your hand up. No, sorry, no, I'll take yours now.
No, it was him simply trying to articulate what he was saying, and that is before there was the gold standard, right? And there was a universal form of currency in the sense that everyone did have that gold. So by him trying to say that America, being the superpower, had a huge advantage, you just said it yourself, they did, because they are the superpower. And even though you may have resources on your land and you have the capability to do certain things, we have now been in so many trade agreements and so many international platforms that have now kind of stumped our growth in that. So that's what I think he meant by saying, Woodsy, they have this advantage, because they do. Sometimes now, if we want to maybe make our tariffs or our, what do they call, benchmarks, like for trade and stuff, to be a bit more tighter, we have to now think of the future partners. The whole poultry thing that happened with America recently just shows you how much power we don't have, even though we have these resources. So that's what I think he meant in his argument. That's where I'm coming from.
You guys, like I'm saying to you, it's not good enough to regurgitate what you're reading and hearing. It's not at all good enough. Okay, like there's more. Like go beyond the crap that gets put out. It's what you're saying is cool because everyone's saying that, but is it true? Like, so what could South Africa have done that's made us grown better? How about that as a question? Like, what are the things that we screwing up? How about that as a question? Like, yeah, there are things that are happening that are to your disadvantage as a person, forget as a nation. But what are the things that you can do to improve your chances in life? You have to think beyond the rhetoric. Yeah.
I was interested in the question about the 75 cents. I think it's the initial question you asked, how come it was 75 cents?
Yeah,
I think,
roughly.
I mean, with the history of the country that we have, I cannot see what year it was.
1960.
1960.
So it's like it's around that mark until about 1980. Yeah.
Okay, this was a British colony until the 1940s, somewhere around there.
48.
48.
Mm.
And I know pretty much around there our economy was very nice. We were using corn, pound,
Bond.
everything was nice. And that is because
What are you defining as nice?
that is because we used foreign currency. And then when the land came in 48 with I don't remember the party, when the Russian came.
National Party. How do you not remember that?
No, I don't remember. Okay.
Sorry, it's so close to my heart. It hurts.
Sorry. And then now, when the land I mean, the economy, the state of the economy began to change from there.
But it stays the same until 1980.
But it began to change, isn't it?
Yeah, but 48, there's at least 12 years before that and another 20 years after that.
Now, let me deal with more information about what was negotiated and what agreement, what state, the status of the government, that the economy that the British have with the, it has to do with that. I believe it has to do with it. And
Okay.
I've not had that information.
We'll deal with that now. Yeah.
Can I just take a wild guess?
Yeah.
Because in that period, I think we as South Africa we were producing more. So
More what?
For instance, our textile industry was very strong. So I'm thinking that maybe because the previous government had stricter tariffs rules, they actually protected our industries, which actually made our currency to be stronger, so our economy to flourish. It's just a wild guess.
Okay, that's fair.
So if you look there from 1984 upwards, right, that's when it was increasing, right? So I'm assuming that during those periods it was when we were having an influx of other competitors coming to compete with our companies, which led to the closure of.
So here's an interesting point. Here, between 80s and 90s, we're having a divestment campaign. So people are actually leaving South Africa.
Yeah.
So there's less competition for local guys at that time.
So I don't know if it's because the rand was strong or the dollar was weak, the graph. Because at that time,
Good question.
the 70s are like the OPEC oil shock, the Vietnam War, things like that. So I feel like it could be either thing, like the dollar was just very weak because of things going on, which is why the Nixon
Went off the gold
introduced the
standard.
Viet money system or like delinked currency. And yeah, I feel like it
Okay,
might be one of
before I take more hands, let me tell you what I was hoping for. I was hoping for the question, what makes a currency stronger than another one? Or what are the things that determines where the currency sits? Okay, because when you can ask that question, you can then begin to look at what are the things that are happening that are either impacting those variables that impact the currency, right? So that's the question that you want to ask. So part of how you get to thinking about things differently is that you need to ask the right questions. Okay, so let's ask that question. What do you think makes one currency? What determines where the currency sits? Do you still want to put your
I
hand?
just want to say something.
Yeah.
During that period why the rand was so strong, was it also because sanctions were imposed onto the country, so they were forced to actually produce on their own other than relying on international. Could that also be one of the reasons?
It could be, but what are the things that make a currency stronger or weaker? Go first.
And in this current financial system, currency is traded. So
Mhm.
it has a value based on how it's traded, how much of the demand is.
Mhm.
So as volatile as the American economy is, the dollar holds its value because it's traded throughout the world. The currency itself is traded, as opposed to
That could cause it to be quite volatile, right?
yeah, but it has an intrinsic value in that the gold price is pegged to it. Everybody, it's an international system of currency. It's accepted throughout the world.
Okay.
That would-
Okay.
I think it's investor confidence.
It could be a factor, but why? What's the underlying story?
So it also is a tool that as used in monetary policy, that we can deliberately make our rand weaker through encourage exports.
Okay.
Housing, speculation.
So who makes it stronger or weaker? Who's there?
Our reserve bank.
Our Reserve Bank. Okay.
We can, it's
Okay, so those are all symptoms, right? What's the underlying story?
Is the value.
The what?
What kind of how much value is represented by that currency, or like what? So when it's really strong,
Yeah. What makes a currency stronger and what makes a currency weaker?
Is it its production, like what a country produces, therefore how valuable the country is? Does that play a factor?
Is it the
Above
gross domestic product?
GDP, not quite.
The demand for the currency.
There we go. That's the bottom line of it. It's about the demand for the currency. Okay, so if more people want your currency than there is available, your currency gets stronger. If there's more of your currency out there than people want, your currency gets weaker. Okay, so over here, we're literally in the gold standard the whole time, right? South Africa's got tons of gold, and we're shipping it all to England. Okay, and everybody, so gold is being bought, so the demand for rands is high. Okay. Divestment campaign. Okay, so we kind of, this 71 to like 80s, everybody's still figuring out whether they're going to do the gold standard or not, blah, blah, blah. So we're kind of still strong because gold is still quite valuable in that sense. And our mines are still okay, they're not approaching depletion yet. 1980 divestment campaign, okay, and you can see that. So money is leaving the country and people are beginning to sell rands as opposed to buy them. And you can see it gets weaker, right? Across the 90s, we get the chicken run, right? So you'll see from like 90 to like 94, there's a huge spike. Okay, the chicken run is Mandela's benevolence, saying people can take their money out of the country. What a nice guy. No, don't hate on Mandela. Don't hate on Mandela. He did his job. He did his job. So we get a lot of money again leaving the country, selling rands. Okay, so we weaken. And then 98, 99, we get the developed emerging economies currency crash. Okay, so Mexico, South Africa, Brazil to some extent, all those currencies basically crashed in that time. Okay, because someone decided that they didn't want them. Okay, I'm kidding. That was the peso crisis. Okay, and we got impacted by that. So we get weaker and weaker. Okay, so, and the South African government is still trying to find its feet. 2002, we finally begin to like get a grip on how to deal with the economic system. Trevor Manuel and Becky start doing the right things, right? Getting FDI in, budget surplus. So we go from having budget deficits into a surplus regime. So I think by 2007, 2008, it might have been before that, we have a budget surplus for like 2 to 3 years. So we kind of, the demand for the rand, well, the selling off of rands is stemmed a little bit. Okay. And then 2008, we have the world global crisis, and emerging markets always take a hiding when there's a problem. And so we go back up a little bit, and after that, the economy grows and we come down again. And then 2010 to date, I don't have a clear answer for that. I think it's a general BRICS story, to be honest, with the exception of India, because Modi is the darling of the West. But I think there's a story around so Russian currency, Brazil, South Africa, and China just can hold their own, right? So you don't attack the Chinese currency. They don't even let it float freely. They decide what the currency is going to be at. And they're big enough to just go. Okay, so they did that last year in June. They just took a hit at the one and made it weaker because they were like, we're not selling enough, and they just made it weaker and they set back for the world to cry. So, but BRICS, within BRICS, Brazil, South Africa, and Russia have had heavily speculative activity happening with their currencies. Okay, so one of the things that I said to have happened in December, for example, is that Goldman Sachs, Barclays, and a third bank literally were like, we're just going to short the rand. So they just dumped the rands into the market. And that's how we moved from 12 to 16 in 3 or 4 days or whatever it is. So it's ultimately about the demand and supply of your currency in the market. Yeah.
If currency is about demand, how is the pound stronger than the dollar? Other countries don't trade with the pound, so how is it stronger?
So there's a demand and supply story, right? So it's not just demand; it's about how much of your currency is also out there. Okay, yeah, but also the global financial system is still kind of housed in London, right? So it's not a minor player, and it's weird. I mean, and that's something that's worth looking at, like the ability of England to maintain their importance in the global economic system. It's like a weird, who knows how they're doing it, but they're doing it. But it is. So part of it is demand, part of it is supply. But London still remains a big economic hub for the world. So New York, London, and increasingly Shanghai is doing that, right? So Hong Kong's also been doing that. So those guys will tend to have some kind of leverage. Yeah.
Can I assume that most economists in South Africa understand what needs to be done, even though it's not being done?
No, you can't.
Can I? So I can't assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I'm not even kidding. So if you have 3 economists in a room, you're going to get 6 opinions about what to do.
Yeah. But is there like no common understanding about like what needs to be done when it comes to South Africa?
There isn't even a common understanding about what's wrong.
Yeah.
Forget how to fix it.
So then who informs
his team and how they understand it. Right? So, but if you get people from different parts of the economy, they'll probably disagree with his team. That's what everybody does. The president of every country gets blamed. Ultimately, you're the CEO. No, it is. You're the CEO. You must run your company properly.
I just wanted to ask you something.
Absolutely, there is.
Yeah,
so the CEO of Walmart. You know how big Walmart is? It's bigger than South Africa. That guy still gets fired if something goes wrong in Bangladesh that he could not possibly know about.
No, I completely agree that we do not have any punitive measures for the decisions our presidencies make. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, we have to look at every single corner before we just say it's your fault.
No, it's his fault. It's his job. He was like, I want to be president. He takes all the benefits, and it's the hot seat. That's just how the world is structured, unfortunately. I'm not saying it's right, but that's how it's structured, and he should take the hiding.
But what I don't understand.
Yeah, so let me take him and then we'll take you.
What I don't understand is that.
No, I said him first, yeah.
You mentioned about those banks like just selling off their rent in December. So basically, what happened was that it didn't matter who our finance minister was at that period. So the rent was just going to do.
Well, it mattered. That's why they did it. They did it because they fired him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say.
It's fine. You don't have to speak.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
So like you just said, instead of us complaining about the common rhetoric, what am I supposed to do? What's my job?
That's right. What is the answer to that?
But that's my question, because
you want me to answer what you must do.
No, I'll tell you why. Because you're the person who is the economist in the room, right? So you're the person who studied it, and you're the person who's understood it. I just asked you, what would economists do in this situation? Like, is there a common understanding? And you just told me from your profession and your understanding, literally, there's no way forward because...
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, you didn't say there's no way forward. Okay.
No.
All right. So because there are different opinions, what is the way forward from your professional understanding of our economy? I'd like to know because I'm interested.
Can I tell you that? Let me tell you. So I think most people think that solutions to economic problems lie somewhere over there. Okay, in the ether or in the presidential office or in the finance ministry or wherever they think it lies. Okay, solutions to economic problems sit in your bank account. Okay, so China, having grown at between 7 and 10% a year for 30 years, was primarily driven by the fact that their household was saving 50% of their income. And there is so for example, one of the things that keeps shocking me about South Africa and most developing economies is this FDI. There isn't a single economy in the world that's developed off the back of FDI. Okay, most economies, if they do well, will like sustain 3% FDI for like maybe 5 years. But the economies that grow are economies that save and which leads to domestic investment from domestic savings. So China,
Is that why Japan did it?
Japan did that. South Korea did that. Lee, what's his country's name? He just died. No, not Korea. Singapore. To some extent, Botswana, which has grown unknown to people at 7% a year for like forever. And you see it when you go to Botswana, right? Like every year that you go to Botswana, you see something different. All of these guys, savings rate 30% and up. We are at 16%. Yeah. So try not to chow all your pocket money or salary. Okay? Set up a savings account, or better yet, open a Satrix account so that you can get some real return. Satrix account. Yeah. SATRIX. Yeah, if I'll take you now.
Okay, if the price of if the cost of living is high though, even though you have a small salary, how are you supposed to do that?
I'm going to ask you a couple of personal questions that you don't want me to ask.
Please go for it, because I'm very interested in us making a difference.
Okay. How much money do you spend on makeup?
Oh, makeup. I only do my eyes, so it's probably like $100.
$100. Do you have to do your eyes?
No, I don't.
Okay, so if you save that $100 every month,
Yes.
you'll save 1,200 every year. Huh?
If I buy cheaper eyeliner,
You can buy cheaper eyeliner, or you can buy no eyeliner.
Why?
she doesn't buy eyeliner.
Sorry? Sorry? No. Okay, whoa, easy. Okay, why do you need eyeliner?
Okay, I like it.
No. That's not what I asked you. Why do you need eyeliner? You don't need eyeliner. What?
Here's what I meant. I'm not talking about guys, I'm not trying to get, I'm not a fan of getting
Go for it.
So I'm not trying to get myself. I'm just saying, right? I agree with the fact that I'll have to spend no money on this eyeliner. Or we could even spend $50 on cheaper eyeliner, right?
Okay.
To compensate what you just said.
Okay.
When I was talking about the cost of living, I'm talking about needs.
I people say that, but then you ask them what needs they're buying and they can't tell you.
Let's take a family in Soweto, one breadwinner, let's say 5,000. There's students, there's people who go to bus, there's food. They can't actually live on that 5,000.
Yeah.
How can
I don't think they're the solution to the country right now because they don't have enough to live on. But you who has something to live on and more should be the one saving.
But there's more people that don't have enough to live on in this country.
Absolutely. But those who do have enough to live on have much more than enough.
Okay,
So for example, the next question would be, how much are you spending on your hair every month?
I have natural hair right now.
That's not an answer.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
So are you
That's
saying-
another $100 just for fun. So out of your 500 that you spend every month, save $100 from there. Now you're saving 2,400 every month. Okay. Next question: how much are you spending on clothes every month? Okay, there's another $100 there. You can save 3,600 now every year, and just 30 people in the room saving 3,600 rand every year translates to 36 times 10 is 36,000. Sorry, 36,000 times 3 is now almost 100,000, if not more.
So the mentality is okay.
Sorry, can I just ask a follow-up? Just to like isn't there a flip side to that? Sorry, I don't know the details, but I remember reading about Japan where they were saving so much that there wasn't enough like money in the economy.
Yeah, but that's post their development, right? That's after they've done everything they need to become a first world country.
Oh, so the saving is primarily important for development funds.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
So how does this whole Centrics thing work?
Yes.
Just Google Satrix. They'll tell you the whole thing. Go Google Satrix and it's in there. It's the cheapest way to get into the stock market. Literally, just if you Google it, they'll have all the answers. Yeah. Yeah, you had your hand up before. Rodney. It's okay, no pressure. You can think about it. Okay.
Okay, so like the same sort of thing. I have savings or simple investment, but now, do you honestly believe that domestic savings is enough to drive investment?
Hell yeah. Completely, fully.
No. I mean, given the context of South Africa and whatever the 6% of working force that pays tax, and the high unemployment and high unemployment rate, whatever. Like
it's not 6%, but yes, I believe it. Because it's not going to be your money that goes, and it's not your little 3,600 that becomes it. It's all the 3,600s that then gets used by someone who's going to be able to do something proper. So investments in roads or whatever the heck is needed will happen because there's a pool of money that allows that to happen.
Okay, now my next question. So that means
I swear I've got all of you. I'm going to try and go in order. Okay? Yeah.
So this can still work if government continues high spending and
in
as long as
productive assets. So it can't be high spending on grants.
Well, I mean that is the case, right?
No, it's not. I mean, they do a lot of infrastructure
okay,
stuff.
but like, I mean, they do a lot of construction stuff, but there's a rising like public wage bill, and obviously when you include like the money spent on grants, it also increases every year.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't that now offset if the households became savers? Wouldn't that be offset by the amount of money that government spends?
No, I mean, it doesn't necessarily go to government, right? Some of it will go to entrepreneurs. So now I can go to a bank because you guys saved, and I can set up my business because they'll have money to loan out. So it's not just going to government. Your savings will be at Standard Bank. So part of solving the problem also entails government finding a way to force banks to lend money out for productive purposes. So when a middle income person wants to build a house or pay for their child's school fees, Standard Bank must give them a loan to be able to do that. And the only way they can give them the loan is if they've got enough deposits in the form of your savings to be able to do that kind of thing. So it's like a whole chain of events that comes out of this one solution of you saving.
So just like two very brief questions. The first one largely comes from the conversation I was having now.
Mm-hmm.
So of those countries that you mentioned, like Taiwan, Japan and stuff, what was the unemployment rate as like these households were saving? Do you know that?
Was shocking for China, right? So, and that's why they had sweatshops, right? But so a phenomenal story, right? A colleague of mine is a visiting professor in the Netherlands. I forgot the name of the university. Okay, and he teaches the economics. When you guys want to share with all of us, you will. So he teaches the economics component of an MBA class there. Okay, and he goes to the class and he asks the Indian guys, so gardener per day in South Africa will get anything between 120 to 200 bucks a day. Okay, and at, let's say last year, the average exchange rate to the dollar, that's about $20 a day, okay, to do whatever you're doing. So let's say between $10 and $20 a day. Okay, and he asks the Indian students, what's the average you would pay a gardener in India? And their number was $2 a day. Okay, and ask the Chinese students, and they're like, $2? What the freak is wrong with you guys? Like, that's a lot of money. That's literally how bad it is. South African guys who get wages, it's low, don't get me wrong, get more than the countries that save more than them.
So you're saying that gardener in China was with that level?
Still saves. The gardener in China saves half of his income, getting less than $2 a day for work.
The second question.
Yeah.
You come from an economics background, so you understand like the importance of saving
Sure.
for development.
Yeah.
Do you think that message is being adequately communicated?
No, I don't.
to the country?
At all. I don't. And unfortunately, people think that the message will be communicated by the government going into surplus. But the government going into surplus is actually bad for the economy because now there's less money going into investment projects, usually. So there's this graph with American, and I'm going to do this for South Africa, that shows that the government deficit versus household savings versus corporate savings or corporate profits and whatever. Literally every time the government goes into surplus, households and corporates go into deficit. So you have to manage your deficits, but going into surplus is not always in service to the country. I'm just going to go in the order. Yeah, sorry.
So I'll be quick. I was at a presentation recently from the Stockfell Association of South Africa.
Yeah.
And there's 50 billion rand invested in stockfells, but none of that is really channeled or made. It's not, banks aren't making it accessible for stockfells to invest in them, to make that money available. So people are saving, but it's being done under the mattress and in places where it
What's
can't be
50 billion as a percentage of the GDP? It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. Yeah, the GDP is 3.5 trillion rand, 3.4, whatever it is. $50 billion is nothing. Huh?
It's nothing, but it's still something. From the base we're starting from.
No.
So is that 16% savings that you quoted, including?
Includes that, yeah.
That, okay.
It's nothing.
So is there a point in your development where it is bad then? Like you said, like when I asked about
like the level of savings.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a point at which your economy needs your consumption in order for it to burn. And I'll try and go through that. You had your hand up and then she had. I've noted you. Yeah.
Recently I'm contemplating, thinking about the suggestion, the question of
yeah.
I think I'm going to need the explanation that when the economy also is experiencing the changes in bank accounts.
Yeah.
With that understanding, I think we can really turn it around, or maybe we can by starting at that level.
Absolutely.
Obviously, it's not going to be the same with people, right?
Yeah, and then convincing everyone around you to do the same. So I don't know if you remember yesterday, I said my kind of ideological standpoint is I don't think any economy should be at any one point forever. You need to swing across, right? So it's this idea that right now in South Africa we need people to save. There'll come a day when we're going to be like, okay, like we get it, well done, Oaks. Now go and buy something. But you need to be able to do that messaging properly and show why that's needed, show at which and how. Look, I think the country's leadership should be understanding that stuff and be doing that messaging. But I also think that at a fundamental level, people themselves need to take responsibility. I think that's like, it's so basic. Like how are you spending every cent you bring in every month? Like what do you think is going to happen when you're 65 when you're not bringing in money? It's like just at that basic level. You need to be responsible. Are you continuing your past point?
Just want the advice.
Yeah.
We have this traditional South African thing of saving, which is it's mostly done by ladies.
Stockfell. Yeah, that's what he was talking about now.
What advice would you? What can you say, like in terms of, because it's been there for a good while. I mean, since I know.
So the big problem with stockfells is that they are for consumptive purposes, right? So they save January to December so that in December they can buy groceries. Yeah, I know they differ. I'm saying mostly that's what they're for. Mostly that's what they're for. Or they're for funerals. Okay, it's for consumptive purposes, basically. What you need is for stockfells to be for more productive purposes, like paying for people's school fees, building each other houses, investing in people's businesses. Then you have those savings actually making money babies, so to speak. So it's money that gets used to make more money. And then they can invest in each other. So the Bangladeshi Grameen Bank is essentially a form of stockfell, right? Because they get some like 5 to 10 ladies who literally get a loan of like $5 and that $5 goes to one of them, okay, and that one can only use it for one of three things: education, construction, or enterprise, okay, and then they all pay that loan back together, and then they take the next loan for the next lady who does the same thing, and they do that. So that's literally what Stokvel should be doing. We're going this year to save to build you a house, and we're all going to pay that money back. Next year we save to build you a house or to pay for your son's school fees or whatever it is. Grameen Bank. It's called the Grameen Bank. Yeah. It's, what's his name? I forgot his name. Mohammed Yunus. She had a hand, and then I'll take yours.
I was going to ask about the issue of our labor being comparatively expensive. What exactly is that? Because our labor earning $200 a day doing nothing. At the end of the day, their real income is really low because the cost of living is so high. Why is that? Why can somebody in China live off $2
Sure.
a day? And for us, I think it's a step in the face. Even with housekeeper in 2008, they were like crazy. They get 2008, people really survive with that. We compare that with people in India and in China, and somehow it seems like the context which they operate is very different.
It's different. Yeah, so let me start with this. So let me put my heart on the table first before I answer the economic stuff. I think that fundamentally it's disgusting that you pay someone $200 to work 8 hours a day. Okay, I sure as hell wouldn't work for that. Okay, let me start as a starting point. And so I don't think there's any fairness in any way with that system. Okay. And I say that knowing full well that I don't know necessarily that economic systems are built on fairness. Okay. So then the question becomes, why is it the case that we pay people that much? Part of it is demand and supply, right? I can drive 200 meters and I can find a maid. Okay. In the next 200 meters I can find another one. Whereas you're going to struggle to find a UCT qualified economist, right? So my services become more expensive than hers. Okay, so again, demand and supply, unfortunately. Why is it that South Africans have to even though they're getting paid relatively more, can't save as much? Part of that story is the cost of earning that money, right? So driving into Sandton from Soweto probably costs you, there's an actual number that I now can't forget. I think it's something like 40% of the income is spent on transport alone. Excuse me. And then there's a cost of food. So food in India is dirt cheap, right? Because it's on the street, it's everywhere. It's dirt cheap. It's almost like Ghanaian style, right? It's in an environment of almost perfect competition. Okay. Food in South Africa is sold at ShopRite. ShopRite determines how much, and it's not. And even though ShopRite is cheaper than Pick and Pay, ShopRite is not cheap. Okay, in absolute terms. So there's that as well. And then we also like the Joneses, and we like to live like the Joneses as opposed to living like the way we should live. So I drive an Atos, for example, right? And before that, I was driving a Palio, which my mom gave to me when I finished school, which was like 150 years old, okay? Almost without fail, every time I'd meet up with my friends, first question would be, why the are you still driving a Palio? And now it's, why the f*** still driving an Atos, okay? And none of them were earning more than me at the time, okay? I was earning significantly more than all of them. But it seemed so important to them that I should drive some or other amazing car because I have money, right? So there's that structural problem as well, and that we don't address. So there are cultural issues within the country and the context that we live in that we don't discuss. So instead of forget the cost of the car itself, my fuel bill is like $400 a week if I'm really driving, like I'm spending the whole tank, right? And now I'm saving versus, for example, my wife drives a BMW. Her fuel bill is $800. okay, a week. So now I'm saving, because of this car, 1,600 a month. And that's before I account for the insurance, for the actual monthly repayments, and. So there's a story there where, there's a different layers at which we need to start rethinking. It's what I was saying, like, how much does your hair cost you? Like, every time my wife goes to the salon, I'm like, I have mini heart attacks. I'm just like, what the yeah. So, and with her, I think that the lucky thing was I was doing that for my sister before, right? So by the time my wife comes around, I'm blinking, not just having heart attacks, but I know how much it costs. But she could just spend less there. Like, I don't think I'd love it less. I hope not, because she's, but it's those kinds of questions that one must ask themselves. Like, how much am I actually spending it on what? Like, how much of the money that I'm spending is on stuff that I need to spend it on? And where can I reduce? Look, if you're spending money on your niece's school fees, and by all bloody means do that. Like, I get that there's a tax involved in being black in the country. By all means do that. But if you're spending money on lipstick and going to freaking Kitchener's, and like, it's basically being a Scotan. That's what it is. It's basically being a Scotan. Like,
basically you've touched on something that's very clear to me in that I think with new entrepreneurs you should try and reverse apartheid. When you start something and you employ people from somewhere, then just do it there. Yes.
Yeah.
You have a factory, you have it. You sort of people to get full taxes come and get you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I ask the question all the time, every time I'm with some other influential person in government, like, why are government offices not in Soweto? Like, why are they not in Soshanguve? Like, why are they still in Pretoria? It doesn't make any freaking sense. And you completely change the economic dynamic if you do that. Because now the people are going to move closer to their work, and they need to buy houses around there. And so now the value of the houses around there increases, and now people have leverage to be able to use to buy and do other things. But those are things, again, those are things that at a minute, America has no power of that decision. Like, there's nothing they can do about that. The government can just be like the simple decision that's being contested now. Why do we have parliament in Cape Town and we've got the presidential home here, the seat of government here, and the seat? Like, which country in the world has two capitals? So now we spend money on business flights to Cape Town and Joburg and Pretoria all the freaking time. Like, it makes no sense. Oh, moving it is going to be more expensive. No, shut that shit down. Like, just shut it down and move on. Like, it's too much money. Hey, sorry, that's why I'm getting more passionate than I want to.
I think also another thing that we as young people tend to not understand is that we tend to only start saving at a certain age.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem.
Or like, also what I've noticed with my friends is that when I tell people I have life insurance, like, what, do you have life insurance? Which is 25.
Yeah.
I mean, I could die every day.
Yeah.
And I think, like, we tend to like take those things for granted, like things like life insurance.
Yeah.
Or things like income protect, or things like, I don't know, because I mean, in my family, cancer is very prevalent.
Got it.
So I had to like make concessions. So I had to like get dread disease cover in case I end up in hospital and chemotherapy or some stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, as young people, we tend to not take those sort of things seriously, and I think especially amongst the black community, because our idea of life insurance is like your neighbor who must need money, which isn't really like financially viable, because number one, your money isn't going to earn interest.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's very limited in terms of what can actually provide you. It's not as long term. It just pays for the funeral essentially. There's no like afterwards, like perhaps bridging the income gap. Or, if the person who passed away was the breadwinner, who's going to fill that gap. So I think, like, as young people, we definitely have a responsibility in terms of looking into that stuff, because I think we're all so caught up with the turn-up culture that we don't actually think about things like life insurance.
She just turned up at the back there. Exactly. So one of the biggest wealth transfers in the world is life insurance, right? So most, and again, you're right, white families transfer wealth through life insurance. So black people assume and think that all white people have some safe somewhere that's full of money. Actually, they're living by and large month to month. The difference is that when the breadwinner dies, life insurance kicks in, pays for the house, pays for the cars, and then there's a little bit of money left over. So now you've transferred the house, the car, and a little bit of money to whoever's surviving. But with black families, the breadwinner dies and everything gets repossessed, right? And now you have to start from scratch again. So it's a real thing. But here's the other side of the story that you guys are now being the young rebels that you are. You're buying into the system by doing all of that, right? So you need to think about that as well. So, but what it requires is you either must think about an alternative system that will work better, or you buy into the system. Okay, what's the time?
I think this is maybe way more than speaking about macroeconomic policies.
What's that's it, I'm out.
No. You've been such a great help. I just want to ask a question. How do you now, right, I don't know how to ask this in the right manner. Like change the perception of this person, Karakasi, has the SUV, has BMW there, and then
DSTV.
like, there's not obviously not saving and lives in like a 2-room shack back. And how do you now change the perception of this person? My God, listen, save, right? We all put this into a safe. It will be a trust fund that, like you were saying, the Premier Bank will be able to provide you. And how do you change the perception of that person without them saying something like, if I save my money, it's going to go essentially to the government, right?
Yeah.
And these people are living nice lives in Pretoria and Cape Town. What's the point? Where do you start? How do you change?
What's the best way to teach a child? By what?
They didn't make mistakes.
Role models.
I don't know. To show them that it works.
Kids do what you do, not what you say. Okay, so you have to do that. You have to live that life. So I don't have DSTV. So I don't have DSTV.
Right.
Believe you me, I can afford it.
You don't
have DSTV.
Okay, so when my friends visit me at my house, we have to have conversations.
Sure.
And part of those conversations is, sure, where's the country going? Like, what can we do to make the country better? Okay. Also, without fail, when you get to my house, you'll find some or other book on the table, because I'm reading all the time. And people will be like, oh, what is this? It's book X. Oh, what's it about? Now you can have a conversation about that stuff. So I'm not doing it so that I have those conversations, but because that's how I live, you can have those conversations around those things, right? So, but it also requires you to open up your home to people, right? So it's not, and when you get to other people's houses, you don't go and plonk in front of the DSTV. It's very subconscious, but that's what people generally do. You go there, and what you're doing is affirming that the DSTV is a good thing, unknowingly, right? So, but preaching to people, man, if preaching was good enough, we'd have this whole world like following the religious book to the T, because between church and mosque and what's the Jewish synagogue, like there's enough preaching happening in this world for it to make no sense why we have sinners, right? In a sense. But preaching doesn't work. You have to model it. Yeah.
I think in South Africa in particular, we have a particular context that this is happening. So for so long, the majority of our country were deprived of all of these things. Exactly. And now we can get it, so we can get it. So the novelty is still there. So that's what needs to get out of our system, basically. That we have it now, it's over. Because in South Africa, our significance is tied to material wealth.
Yeah.
I'm somebody because I have this and this and this. And it's not education, as much as we value it, it's not valued in society. Our academics don't get paid much or whatever it is.
And they get more than $1 million.
And
so
the administrators, not the lecturers.
No, the lecturers get more than $1 million, but they must be senior lecturers.
Not like UK didn't. But okay.
Wow, that's surprising.
The point I'm making is the Kenny Kunenes of the world are not educated, but they are extremely wealthy and they are seen as somebody. That's the difference.
Let's break that down. Okay, so one, you can change that. So China, before it started doing what it's doing, was having famines. So they could have also been like, it's our time to shine. But they weren't. They didn't. Okay, they just and got to work. We can do the same. Okay, so I'm not saying it's not true, but it's an excuse. It's not a reason. Okay, I'd like to differentiate between reasons and excuses. So if I'm on a wheelchair, that's a reason not to walk up the stairs. Okay, if I'm overweight, that's an excuse not to walk up the stairs. Okay, that's what I'm trying to. Okay, that's one thing. Education. What do we call education? Carnegie and Henry Ford and Edison. Okay? Arguably, in recent history, the top 3 richest men in the world. Richer than Bill Gates, all 3 of them. Okay, so Carnegie in I can't remember, but early in the 1900s, sold US Steel, Carnegie Steel, which became US Steel, to JP Morgan for $350 million US. Okay, which, when inflation adjusted, puts them in a whole new bracket in today's money. All 3 of them didn't go to school. Okay, so does that mean they were uneducated? No, it doesn't. So our conception of what education is needs to be correct. Okay, you are making the point that you are making the point around the rewards. Well, people are getting rewarded for not, even though they haven't gone to school. Okay, I'm saying we need to de-link that from people are getting rewarded for not being educated, because, for example, Kenny, for all his ills and whatnot, has spent a lot of time understanding how business works and how he can make money in that space.
So his business side,
that is an education in and of itself.
It's not socially.
No, he doesn't have a certificate to say I've got an MBA, but Kenny spent a lot of time understanding how to run a successful business.
Otherwise he wouldn't be so successful.
And so the narrative needs to change. Okay, so the narrative is not uneducated people are getting paid, but it's different. So Julius, for all his ills, has been doing politics from the breast. That guy understands politics. I mean, there are 12 videos of 12-year-old Julius honing his ability to speak in public. It's an education. And so how you then structure what it means to be educated. Because the difference now is the guy who wants to then emulate Julius wants to all of a sudden become a political leader and doesn't realize that actually Julius has put in his 10,000 hours in how to be a political leader. Kenny has put in his 10,000 hours in how to be an entrepreneur. And what we now see is the end result, but we haven't seen his journey, how to get there. So we need to begin to have the conversation around how you put in your 10,000 hours to get to where you want to. And it might look like a track through UCT. It might look like not a track through UCT. And that's, but it's easy to discredit Kenny by saying he's not educated if you're white capital and Kenny's success goes against what you're hoping to achieve.
My point is, what does that success look like? Who does it benefit? Who at what price does that success come? Not just Kenny, but what sells in business, what sells and how it affects society as a whole. That's a point I make.
Sure. So you kind of making a comment on Kenny's sushi beer patterns, right? In a sense. Okay. Okay. As long as we're discussing his sushi stuff and not whether he's okay. That's a different story. Yeah.
With the discussion that is going towards role models in society.
Yeah. Smooth. Smooth is a great role model. I think he is. I think he's a great role model. I think he's now offended the wrong people and they're going to knock him, but he's a great role model. I think he's done well, and Smooth also gives back, a lot. Huh? No, the examples are many. It's just but it's what I was saying earlier. You hear things and you think that's the truth, and that's the rhetoric, right? So you hear Kenny's sushi parties, and you now, Kenny's terrible, but you don't even understand the story behind Kenny. You know, so it's about going behind the stuff that you get fed. Yeah, we really need to move, guys. Yeah.
So, how do you save and then at the same time you're able to get those things that you want?
You probably can't. So just get that out of your mind.
Then how am I going to get them then?
You don't. Why do you need them?
Because I want them. I want a nice car. There's nothing wrong with that.
You have to work hard. Your money makes money, babies, and later you can get a nice car, my guy.
Cash.
Well, hopefully not cash. We can talk about how you should get it, but I mean, if you're trying to get a BMW now with your first salary, like, your problems are bigger than you realize. Yeah.
No, I'm learning. I just wanted to ask from comrades to